Yeah, okay. Back up in the shed again. But what I'm doing this afternoon, it is the day before Christmas Eve actually, and I'm going through brush cutting all the property. And look, it's things that you need to do. It is summer over here now, and it's what the snakes come out, so you don't want any long grass around. But also coming into Christmas, we've got family coming to visit, so I want to make it look nice and neat and tidy, which I have to say it normally is, but just go that little bit extra and brush cutting a little bit more than what I would probably do on a weekly basis. So I definitely couldn't brush cut as much as what I'm doing today on a weekly basis. It'd just be too long. So what I wanted to do is just quickly go through how to wind up the brush cutter cord. Thankfully I did get prepared, and I bought some extra cord a couple of weeks ago because I knew my other one was getting low. But if you're wondering what I am wearing, great question, I hear you asking. This is actually a mount for my brush cutter. So what it does, it means I'm not having to hold the weight of the brush cutter as I'm working. And let's go have a look at the brush cutter. But look, this vest mount thing is absolutely fantastic. So that's the brush cutter. As you can see, it's a Stihl, super reliable, starts all the time. And this vesty mount thing clips in through there, and so it basically holds the weight. And you'll notice I've got the bull horns on it as well, as opposed to the sort of little handle that you'd probably use more in suburbia. And you'll also notice that's got a straight shaft on it, which means I can put a cutting blade on that, which I do have as well, which is really good for when I'm cutting through blackberries, trying to get rid of some blackberries. Look, I do grow blackberries, but I try to keep them in a certain position so it doesn't take over the whole property, because they do go a little bit wild down here. They go pretty crazy. But anyway, yeah, so that's the brush cutter and the mount system that I use. So I've put some photos in of the area that I've just cut actually, and what you'll see there is I'm keeping the grass out of a ditch, or a drain more than a ditch actually. So I'm just measuring out how much cord I want to put onto my nice little brush cutter head there. So it is, I guess it has a couple of purposes. So it makes it look a bit neater and tidier, but also allows the water to run, flow through the drainage better. And if, I probably should use a sharper knife, shouldn't I? Because I do actually have a grinder just beside me. So, before you start, it's really important, I think one of the most important things is especially when you're about to do this sort of stuff, is make sure your earmuffs are on top of your head, so I can listen to the music at the same time as I'm putting the cord on. And I know there's going to be some WHS people out there say you should never put your earmuffs on top of your head because it stretches them and it stops the seal. It does actually impact the seal on the earmuffs eventually. Yeah, no. So I've got the earmuffs on top of my head so I can still listen to some music while I'm doing this. So what you'll see is I'm doing, I've just put the two ends into some little holes in there. I probably should have shown that, seeing that's what I was showing a video of. So they just slot in like so. And this is still one piece. So if I go to the other end of this, it's still joined. So it's just one length. And what I'm going to do is wind both of those on at the same time. Try and keep it nice and tight. And that didn't work so good. One just fell out. Too busy talking and not doing. So I've put them in, but what I'm going to do now is actually bring them back the opposite way to how they go in and just roll it on. So one of the challenges of wrapping the cord on is if it doesn't go on reasonably smooth, when I say smoothly, like you shouldn't have them sort of cutting over the top of each other all the time, so they should sort of go side, like actually lay beside the next one, because if they don't and you find that they're sort of crisscrossing all the time, what ends up happening is that they get warm in there and they can actually sort of melt on each other. Sometimes they don't even melt on each other, but they just get stuck. And what you'll find is that the cord will snap off and you're left with no cord coming out the end of your brush cutter, which means you need to stop, take the head off, unstuck it, and keep going, which really isn't that big of a deal. But sometimes when you're really hot, sweaty, and it's sunny and very warm outside, you just want to keep things moving along. And then when your cord runs out, you come back up to the shed, nice cool area, have a drink, and carry on. So we're at the end. So I'm going to use a different knife, see if that's any better. Except I've got the rough edge, not the cutting edge there. So this is, if you're wondering what the knife is, it's my little fold outer. It's a CRKT, my little Columbia River knife, little M16 I think it is called. Great little knife. I keep it in my pocket all the time. Like, it does help unstick a lot of things, or especially if I've got grass around the head of the brush cutter, I can cut that loose. It's one of those things that when I'm on the property, just slots into the pocket very nicely. So this is where it ends. So I've now cut it. What I can do is, there should be a little, yeah, there it is there. Like, there's a little, if you can see that, yep, that little hole there. That's a little spot where I can now hook that cord into. And I've got one on the other side here as well. So it holds like that. Now, I'm not going to fit it like that, but I'll use that to help fit it in so that those cords don't unravel and come loose as I'm putting it all together. And then we're right to go and cut for another, probably at 20-25 minutes. So I find the cord is probably lasting about that sort of long, so probably about 3/4 of a tank of fuel. And that's only because I'm cutting up against things, like I'm cutting up against trees and fences, and so the barbed wire sometimes it sort of hooks up around that and it just spits off. Or if I'm going through some thicker plants, so the stem of the plants are a bit thicker, that'll sort of snap that cord off as well. So I do tend to use a bit more of it. But if I'm just cutting through open grass, look, and I have to say I don't do too much of that these days. I've got sheep that do that for me. So that's worked out really well. But yeah, that probably, yeah, depends on what I'm trying to cut against. Will depend on how long that will last. So there's another job done. So look, I wrapped that up actually on Christmas Eve. It was about 6.5 hours all up over 2 days of just brush cutting, especially like cleaning that drain, that ditch there, and also around all the trees and making sure, and the gardens, making sure it was all nice and neat, ready for Christmas. So there's a lot of changes of line on the head of the brush cutter, as you can imagine, over 6.5 hours of brush cutting. But look, in the end, it is worth it, and having the right tools for the job also make a difference. So look, if you've liked that, please hit the subscribe button, give us a big thumbs up, and share it with your friends. And hope you have a great, happy, and prosperous 2022. Till next time, I'll see you then.